Hey guys. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us. This is the last meetup of the year, the last Aotearoa Azure meetup. For you guys, we do this every month, except for December and January. We do it normally on the third Thursday of the month. Normally it is on during the lunch break. Sometimes we might change that in the future. We have a lot of plans to like add some more fun activities. And we thought it's a good idea to actually end up the year with a meetup to talk about certification. We thought it's very like a very aptly topic because a lot of people are actually in the market looking for roles. And also you might have some time during the break to catch up on some reading or like explore some certifications. And Microsoft Azure certification, like in general, is very in demand. We'll talk about the details for it, of course, with the lineup. So I'm Amit, one of the Azure MVPs. I'm joined with my fellow MVPs. Luke is online. He's joining us from Hamilton. We've got Marcel and Deepak, of course, two fellow MVPs. Each will talk about a specific topic, specific angle about Microsoft Azure certifications. Sweet. So this is our agenda for today. The Aotearoa Azure meetup is run by two people, myself and Rory. Rory is on vacation, I believe in Japan, so good for him. And of course, thank you so much. I can't thank the awesome people, Nick, DSR, and Shemaine, Microsoft host. They have been hosting us all over the year. They have been behind the scenes, organizing everything, making all of this happen. So thank you so much, and thank you, Dan. And we also want to thank our sponsor for this meetup. CCL, which is part of Spark, has been kind enough to sponsor our meetup for the last, I believe, 6 months now. So if we could, give them a bit of a clap for sponsoring us. Thank you for the things. Yeah. If you would like to be our next speaker, if you want to be here on the stage, if you've got an interesting topic, if you've got some like a war story about a technology that you deployed and then learned a lot from it, this is the QR code. You could scan it and you'll get a Microsoft form. If you fill it up, me or Rory would actually pick it up and we'll be in touch. And yeah, so without further ado, we'll jump into the first speaker of today. And yeah, that will be me. Just double checking. Sweet. Hopefully technology works. Sweet. Yeah. So again, a little bit about me. Thank you for being with us. So I'm a Microsoft Azure MVP in the Azure networking category. I'm a principal consultant at a company called Lab3, again, Microsoft partner, and I have 15 years of experience in both networking and cloud. I write on, I've got my own blog, YouTube channel, LinkedIn, Twitter, you name it. Yeah, so today I'll be talking about, like, I thought that it's a very good introduction to actually give you a run through quickly through all of Microsoft available certifications, just a high level on what are the domains for Microsoft certifications and what are the major certs in each domain. So this will help you when my colleagues come in and talk about specific Microsoft certification. You'll get an idea of the landscape of certifications. So, of course, if you're just starting to learn Microsoft technology, the first certificate that I recommend for anyone is the Microsoft Azure AZ900. It's the Microsoft fundamentals. So when I first jumped in, into the world of cloud, when I wanted to learn about Microsoft technology, even though it says it is just the fundamentals and it is just targeted for senior level type of stuff, but it actually opens up a lot of it's almost like a gateway to Microsoft Azure. It talks about all the technology on Microsoft Azure, all about the networking, the storage, the compute. It talks about concept of Azure regions and Azure zones. It talks about how it helps you in a very concise way wrap your head around Microsoft Azure world. And you'll find that I'll talk about another certificate later on. Well, there is the Microsoft Azure Administrator, which is almost like a cloud engineer. There's the Microsoft Azure Solution Architect for cloud architects. What I found personally, the knowledge that I gained from the Azure AZ900 is still valuable, even going into the hands-on, going into the details of creating architecture and building solution. Because of the knowledge that I gained out of this, it is still valuable. So the next one is those two certifications is more catered for developers. So you've got the AZ204, which is the Microsoft Azure Developer Certificate, and we've got the Power Platform 900. And by the way, you'll find a trend in all of Microsoft numbering. So any 900 type of certificate, it is always fundamentals for that domain. So for example, Power Platform, you've got the 900 for the Azure fundamentals. It's also 900. You'll see, I'll talk about the AI 900 again for fundamentals of AI solutions on Microsoft. And then you'll find the numbers is actually the higher the number, the more difficult or the more in-depth the certificate. So there are 200 certificates, even the 204 for the developer, it says it's associate, but it's very intense. We've got our own developer here, Marcel, talk about it. But yeah, there's the 300 level, there's Microsoft Security Engineer, Azure AZ500. So yeah, these numbers are also are intentional. Yeah, and again, if you are into learning more about if you want to become a data scientist, if you want to learn more about data, if you want to, if you are interested in those kind of solutions, the DP900 again, it's a fundamental. It helps you understand what is the data solution that Microsoft Azure provide. How do you jump into? And I really recommend not skipping the line. I know that it is very tempting. So what I did personally is that I went for the AZ900, I went for the Azure Administrator, and then I went for the Azure Networking just because I come from a networking world and I've got a lot of experience with that. And then finally, I went for the Azure Solution Architect. And with that, it gave me a lot of confidence when I went for the solution architect because I've got all the fundamentals. The solution architect was just trying to help me figure out how to put it all into an end-to-end solution. So start with those. It gives you a lot of confidence because it helps you wrap your mind around that specific domain. So whether it's if you want to become a data engineer, an AI, a developer, start with the fundamentals one before jumping into the more in-depth one. Gives you a confidence, but also gives you a lot of the prerequisite for you to actually dive deeper. And of course, I'm going so fast here because of for the sake of time, but also I'll give you some resources at the end and something we could do. Yeah, again, this is all about the AI engineer, the AI 900. This one again. What I would say, this is really fascinating, and it's a must for anyone living in this generative AI world. What the AI 900 it has got more rigor than just actually the generative AI world, and then just using ChatGPT and those kind of solutions. This one actually helps you understand how do you tackle for example, you've got a document and then you want to understand, get some knowledge from that document. You've got you want to build say, I'm going through it now and I'm learning. You want to you've got a like a retail business and you want to build a chatbot where people jump in and they want to understand a little bit about your business. So how do you do that? How do you understand what is the client asking? How do you know the intention? How do you communicate that back to the pipeline, understanding, like say someone says, this shirt is really good, can I have a different color or do you have a different size? It's an easy question, but there's a lot of intelligence behind the scenes. So this one helps you put your foot on the right path in learning how to implement AI solutions. And yeah, again, for security, we've got the security engineer. Again, we've got our own security MVP here that will talk more about it. But yet again, that's another domain. We've got, as you could see here, there is the AI, there's the data, there's the security, there is the Azure administrator or cloud engineer, which is this one exactly. I'll skip ahead to the resources. And what I found very interesting is that Microsoft actually has built, made a lot of useful resources that a lot of people are actually surprisingly not aware of. So there is, for example, and I'll open this one in a second, there is a page on Microsoft Learn that is called the career path. When you open that page, and I'll open it in a second, you'll find all sort of career path that you could pick one of those. And then when you click on it, you will end up with all sort of more details, like these are the proper learning material, and these are the certifications. Microsoft Learn in general is organized in a packaged way. So there's a lot of, like, for example, say you want to learn infrastructure as code, whether it's like Azure Bicep or like you want to learn something about DevOps. There's a lot of set training with a progressive progressive material built on top of each other. That's all being organized within like career path or learning. And then the other very interesting thing is that there is even sometimes, if you click on the right link and you find it, you could even get access to a free, like Microsoft will give you like free access to Azure for like 2 hours or like an hour to actually deploy some resources. And then once that is done, it will be deleted. One thing I would say about this one is that it doesn't work all the time because of load. So if there's a lot of load on a specific region, you not get access to this one, or like if it is, what is the word? Sometimes it works, but I would say 90% of the time it actually worked for me. And again, I'll show you guys what I'm talking about here. So hopefully this is gonna work. Sweet. Yeah, so this is, of course, I'll share all these resources at the end of the session. So in here, you could actually see all the career path that you might pick. So if you want to be a data scientist, an engineer, a developer, DevOps engineer, all sort of path that you could possibly think of, all available here. Say, for example, let's click on like a developer one. So when you click on it, that'll give you even more resources. So I'll start immediately to say, like, these are learning paths for you. You want to learn C#, you want, yeah, there's a lot more collection of all sorts of material that you could actually jump into and learn. So, unfortunately, this one connection. Yeah, so let's click on this one maybe. Yeah, I'm not going to steal the thunder from you, Marcel, but anyway, these are a lot of resources. That's the first one. The second one in here, that's all of the Microsoft Learn. This one is the exercise. So yeah, so this is the whole library. This literally is the whole library. Every single thing in here, 4,732 modules of training that is available for you to go through all the resources that you would like. And you would say, like, hey, for example, I want to be Microsoft administrator for a cloud engineer, 1,500 topics. And you could dive deeper. Like, I want a beginner type of material. I want advanced. I want a learning path. I don't want you just to give me, like, if you click on, for example, beginner, and then say, I want to be a learning path instead of just some material. So this one would actually give you packaged material about administrator, beginner in a learning path. The other secret in here, which is this one. So what this one is, and I'll show you how to reach this one. A lot of the resources that Microsoft Learn provide, if it starts with exercise, that's fun, because this is actually going to give you access to a Microsoft Azure resources for a limited time. So you could just click on like sign in to activate your sandbox. It's going to ask you to log in with and you could set up a Microsoft Azure portal username and password. It's for free. It's going to give you even $300 credit. Just be mindful of resources that you create, not to leave there, because then you'll be charged. And you, that's very important, yeah. But yeah, what's going to happen here is that as soon as you signed in, you're going to be given access to a Microsoft Azure tenancy for 1 hour that will help you. Say, for example, you want to deploy a virtual machine, or you want to do some like a developer type of material. You could access it, you could work on it, and you don't even have to worry. After an hour, it's going to be automatically deleted. You're not going to be charged at all. That's a lot of people don't know about it, but every single module that you'll find an exercise label with it, you'll get free access to Microsoft Azure. And again, it depends on how the load of it. The one last thing I'll leave you here before I jump is every single certification. If you search on Google or Bing, if you search on another way around, oops. If you search on Google and you just write, say for example, Microsoft Azure Administrator Certificate, the first link that you'll open up is this page, correct? What I found really useful is that it gives you immediately all the resources that you'll need for that specific certificate. You don't even, like, if you're not really sure what to do, when it comes to, what is the word? If you're not really sure which certificate you want to pick, then just search for that specific certification and you'll find all the source material all organized for you already, and 100% of the time contains exercise access. So yeah, with all of that done, thanks so much, guys, and let's jump into the next MVP.
Which is me, I think.
Oh yeah, look, yeah, if you could just share your screen, that would be great, mate.
Yep. Hopefully you can see it. Thanks all. Yeah, we're just going to continue the conversation around the Microsoft credentials. I'm going to touch on my own journey, and like Ahmed, I'm going to give you a bunch of resources that I'll share on the meetup page at the end that you guys can access. It's a huge topic, and I think I've gone a bit more technical than Ahmed in terms of just the requirements and what the industry is looking like at the moment, but we'll get into it and see where we go. So my name is Luke Murray. I'm a Microsoft MVP and a Learn expert from Hamilton, New Zealand. So I'm not able to make it in Auckland today due to other commitments, but I hold numerous certifications from Azure Administrator, Architect to Developer and Cybersecurity. I don't have the AI ones yet, but I am working on it, and you can find me in a range of social media as well. I'll dive into the Microsoft Learn expert piece shortly and kind of what that entails and some of the resources that you can use to help study and learn. And then like Q&A, I think there's a speaker roundtable at the end that we'll go through and discuss if needed. So as we look towards the future, like we face a critical challenge in the workforce with widening skills gap. So based on a recent survey by the International Data Corporation that was sponsored by Microsoft a few months ago, by 2027, IDC predicts that 90% of organizations will experience significant setbacks due to skill shortage, which is going to cost the global economy a staggering like $5.5 trillion. So the losses will stem from things like product delays, competitiveness, quality issues, mixed revenue goal, and declining customer satisfaction as well. So the survey suggests to address some of these challenges, we must prioritize skill-based hiring and ensure that people have effective ways to validate those skills. It's essential to bridge the gap between the skills that companies need and those that employees possess. Fortunately, in the last couple of years, online training platforms and courses are on the rise, just driven by the reality of people working remotely and hybrid work as well. I know that's quite a sore subject at the moment, with a lot of organizations starting to bring employees back into the office, but the number of hybrid and remote workers is still quite high. So coupling full role-based credentials with scenario-based credentials, like organizations can ensure that the workforce is equipped with the necessary skills to remain competitive. And we'll touch a bit on the difference between, the role-based certifications, which Ahmed was just talking to us about, and the scenario-based, which in Microsoft world is applied skills. So just a bit more detail around it. Some of the skills that organizations are seeing missing based on the same report is really things like cybersecurity, DevSecOps, requiring like 76% in demand those skills, as threats involves like so much, so must our defense. So, and then behind that is cloud technologies, which is, vital for infrastructure and storage, and data skills as well, with artificial intelligence coming up quite behind with 59% in demand. And then, of course, IoT is not going anywhere, and IT service management and operations is very critical as well. So I think it's safe to say that we must continue to still invest in our training and development going into the future as well. And like was discussed about, it is quite a competitive market at the moment, so these things can help. I'll just go into sort of a brief between the role-based certifications and then the micro skills as well. So about 70% of organizations regard industry recognized credentials as essential and important to use. And then they also not only enhance the employability, but boost the efficiency by ensuring that teams are comprised of highly skilled and competitive professionals as well. I won't go into the detail. You will get a copy of these slides to read later, but I thought it's worth. So I just want to share about my own journey in this space. Not only how certificates have helped me learn technical skills, but really how to learn effectively. So I started in IT, volunteering at a local computer store in Huntley for many years during high school, before going and studying for like my NCA. I think it was diploma and certificate level 5 at the time. And then finally going into enterprise IT in 2023. So I embarked on a path of continuous learning and growth. Each certification that I pursued opened new doors and deepened my understanding of the technology. In 2024, that's this year, 2014, as an enterprise architect, I achieved Microsoft Certified Solutions Associate. I think at the time they no longer exist, but it was in Windows Server 2012, which was a pivotal moment that kind of fueled the passion for Windows Server and cloud technologies. And at that stage, I believe Microsoft Azure was called Windows Azure, and the capabilities started to grow and grow in that space as well. We can kind of see the job market start to sort of shift a bit. So as I transitioned into Azure roles, like taking exams just became a way to challenge myself, validate my knowledge. It wasn't just about passing a test, it was about understanding how to approach the problems, think critically, and apply concepts in scenario-based like case studies, just trying to be as real life as possible. So credentials helped keep my mind engaged, learn, adapt, and stay ahead of what is a really rapidly changing field. For me personally, it's also a form of mental health. Like, it just helps scratch that itch about learning new capabilities. And ironically, the more you learn, you realize that the more you learn, you don't actually know as much as you think. So there's always more to learn, which is why I never really would classify myself as an expert, although we are all our worst critics. I believe it's just a viewpoint that's helped me continuously learn throughout the year. So 2017 was really my main shift into concentrating on Azure, as I saw the shift in the job market by paying attention to the industries and the roles advertised. With needing Azure and DevOps skills, they started to be talked a lot more around the water cooler. And that was kind of when a lot of organizations would say that they're DevOps, but actually no one really knew what it meant. So it was really interesting. So I made the shift from traditional data center based infrastructure and server management, including SCCM or config manager, administration and automation, into more Azure focused roles and companies. So at the time I worked in the health industry, which was very slow to adapt cloud technologies at the time due to varying factors. So I made the shift from health into education, then utilities, giving me exposure to other industries, ways of working as well. So by 2021, grown into roles such as the technical consultant and senior consultant. The titles here don't overly matter. Different organizations call them different things, but it's essentially the same consultancy and architecture. And instead of working in the customer world, I went back to kind of the managed service environment as well. For the first Azure certification I completed, ironically, was the Azure Solution Architect, that was actually before the Azure Administrator was part of the certification. So I didn't go through sort of the Azure Administrator and the fundamentals, although I do agree that you should go through those first. I went straight into the deep end and went through the architect exam. And then I went and took the Azure Virtual Desktop one, which was in beta, which I passed, which was just a great way to go through and test the new technologies. So I gained understanding of working sort of around the technology and the way of working. So I am studying for the Azure AI exam at the moment. I need to book that in, and I've included some slide decks around some of the resources I'm using to learn that as well, which I'll share. This was really an interesting retrospective because as I grew my career, you might notice the gaps between kind of my roles started to close down. So I took on more and more certifications, and then lately I moved to applied skills. In the interest of time, like one of the things I think that's worth calling out with certifications is that if you're working for a Microsoft partner like Datacom, Lab3, CCL, Spark, they're judged by Microsoft on the amount of certified professionals that people have. So if you go into a specialization, so your company wants to specialize in AI or data or AVD, Microsoft has a commitment that you have X number of people certified. So like it's not only a pathway to learn, but it's actually validation of skills that when you're going to job interviews and you're applying for a Microsoft partner, like applying for a job at a Microsoft partner, that actually having certifications can help you tell your story there because they need those people to be certified and maintain that criteria as well. So I'm just wary of time, so I'll hurry this along, but I touched a bit on the Microsoft Learn Expert piece. So what that really means is that I run a Microsoft worldwide learning community called Azure Cloud Commanders. So Cloud Commanders, along with other learning rooms, is a space to allow the community, which is like really a platform for sharing and acquiring knowledge, focused on Microsoft certification. So my personal learning room is focused on Azure infrastructure administration, DevOps, There's other learning rooms as well, such as another Auckland MVP called Indira, which is about Auckland and AI. So I run sessions with learning room students. We've had some great sessions this year around cloud security, container apps, functions, logic apps, Kubernetes service. And we've got some great sessions scheduled as well around Azure AI Foundry, prompt flow, Azure networking, and developer CLI scheduled. So if interested in learning more and being part of those sessions, I highly recommend that you reach out and join the learning rooms. They're free resource offered by Microsoft Learn to really help get you going in a community of people that either want to know more about Azure or want to learn about certifications. So I've kind of discussed a bit of the technical IDC survey information, which I'm sure we've all seen before, but what I wanted to do was go out to people that I know or real people and actually see what their perspective was. So I reached out to the same learning community that I just talked about and got a couple of sort of quotes of what they thought certificates meant for them. So some of the responses were the credentials have opened doors and fueled personal and professional growth. Another person said certificates have been a catalyst for lifelong learning. They're not just about a piece of paper. They inspire ongoing education through reading blogs, white papers, books, and keeping up with the rapidly changing industry. Another one said, for many, certifications have been the key to career transformation. They've helped community members transition into the tech industry, and but also not only the certifications, but being supported by building their portfolios and blogs that help showcase their expertise. So one of the things that I want to call out as well is that the general consensus among people is that certificates are a great way of getting that stuff on paper, but also webinars and other sort of micro skills is good to be a part of as well. And personally in my career, it's the days of spending 5 days in office doing Azure administrator course and then doing an exam at the end of the 5 days is kind of over. It's now bits and pieces, doing study among other time, but it really depends on how you want to learn, whether it's going through a classroom course or applying for some of the sessions, like attending this event or listening to podcasts as well. So it was really interesting to get the perspective of people who are engaged in the Learn community at the time. So I just want to discuss the applied skills because I know there's a lot of confusion around sort of, are Microsoft replacing certifications? What are applied skills and how that's going on? So you may have noticed I've used the term credentials a few times over certifications, and this is why. So the credential terminology is really standardized within the Microsoft Learn ecosystem because it covers both the certifications and applied skills. And certifications are not going anywhere. They're still definitely on the Microsoft roadmap. But where applied skills come into play is they're focused on validating specific skills through project-based scenario experiences. So they're interactive lab assessments. I think they're 2 hours. They're unproctored. You sit in front of the computer, open up a lab. There's a task-based scenario that you go through. Some of the examples for create an intelligent document processing solution with Azure AI Document Intelligence. So you're given a bunch of tasks that you go through, and then it's up to you to go through this lab and create your document intelligence or your security pipelines with Azure DevOps and things like that. They're specific tasks that you can use instead of the broader certifications, which are more role-based. Very, very useful for learning, especially when you're studying for the AI 102 engineer exam, for example. I'm finding it really useful to go through these applied skills first because they're a good mechanism to target where you're looking at. I don't have time to demo, actually. I'll quickly show you. But one of the things released last week with Microsoft Ignite is, along name changes that we always love, is AI generated plans. So Ahmed touched a bit on the collections. So for example, if I go into Microsoft Learn and I open up a random Microsoft Learn document, and that of course is the wrong one, you might see a little plus sign here on each page. And you have the option to add to collections and add to plan. So one of the things you can do is if you're studying for a specific exam or a specific subject, what you can do is you can go into Microsoft Learn, you can create collections based on a specific subject area or whatever you want. So for example, if I'm studying for AI, I could just have an AI. This is a great description, lol. And you can add in things like just your normal Microsoft Learn documents, your learning modules as well. So the sandbox stuff that Ahmed shared before, if you find some really good lab-based learning, you could add them to your collection, and then you can go back and bake a plan based on that collection. So what a plan is if you go in to create a plan, plans. It's because I don't have any collection. So previously, what you had to do is you had to create a collection, and then you could create a plan based on that collection that you've done. But as of last week, Microsoft have announced and released AI generated plans. So instead of having to go through that interface and pick and choose and add to your collection, which you can share with other people as well, you can click on Create Plan with AI. You can choose a planning goal. So whether it's starting a new career or completing a specific project, and then you can specify exactly what you want to do. So I'm just going to be lazy and borrow this example about developing a web application, paste it in here. Technologies is Blazor and other things. So we're just going to click next. And that will bring through a lot of the content across Microsoft Learn, some of them that you may not have even realized are there, and generate a plan for you. And it will also add milestones. So for example, like if you want to complete specific things within a specific amount of days, you can specify milestones. So you can break in the content into smaller pieces. This plan can also be shared with other people. So you can actually track their usage and their use of, like, whether or not, you know, your colleagues or your friends are going through and learning and completing the modules. You can see that. So that's really good for organization-based learning. And with all good things AI, it takes some time to complete that. Here we are. So here's review plan. So it's given me develop web applications, some learning outcomes, and it's created 4 milestones. So create web apps with services and then develop. And so you can go through and get started with that plan and start going through and tracking how you're doing with that. I think it's really worth calling out because a lot of these things are, so that's your own custom plan created, and then I can also publish it and share it as well. So that's a very useful resource for learning new things. So I've reached kind of the end of my discussion, but I have also included quite a lot of resources. There's a Humble Bumble deal happening at the moment around Microsoft certifications. So there's up to 23 item bundles, some growth mindset things, and then different areas where you can go through and learn. So, and of course, the Festive Tech calendar is coming up. So yeah, that's me. Hopefully it's useful, and I'll pass to the next presenter.
Thank you so much, Luke.
Right. Let's just continue with the session. So my name is Marcelo Medina. I'm coming here just to continue with the discussion, focus a little bit more like on digital apps, innovation certifications. Right. For those that don't know me, Marcelo Medina, I'm a software developer, Azure specialist. I got like some stuff happening here, like I do a lot of things. Currently, I'm working at practice as a practice lead at Arco. And that's the link like on my blog. And you have the QR code that leads to my MVP profile, right, with Microsoft. And as you can see there, like I have some certs. Right? I'm gonna go through like my journey on software development and sharing like my experiences, right? Being something practical for you to know like what sort of hurdles or challenges you may face, right? So why certifications? A career game changer. The way how I see certifications is that like they are door to opportunities. Why I say that? Because when you look like those, what sort of opportunities, right? I believe like in this principle of life where you have like you sow and you reap. You put like investment today for your future. You have like you be like a better self, or have like collect what you've done in the past. So in terms of opportunities, I see like opportunities for promotions, right? When you're looking like organizations. In what ways? Well, as soon as you get like certified, there are like some status I'm gonna share, but you increase like your knowledge and your skills, you become like more confident. With that, like you lead discussions in your teams, you help like other developers, others in your team, people start like trusting you. So you develop like those skills, right? Not only the technical skills, but the soft skills as well to help others. And that can lead to opportunities, right? Within the company you work for. The other thing could be a bonus. Depending like on the companies you work for, like with Microsoft partners, they give you a bonus for the certifications, right? So that's also like really great if you work for those companies, Microsoft partners. You could target like specific career path. Maybe you're doing something in here, right? Going towards this direction. You want to do something completely different. So you could focus like on the Microsoft certifications and target that specific path. Later on, you could like completely change the way how you do things. The other thing could be also to, well, I think like you just have like a blank. There's like another one where you basically coming as like an expert within your company, right? People are trusting you. You're developing that sort of connection and networking as well, right? So I think like that leads you like to connections, and those connections also help you in future, right? What we see like in the market at the moment is that you could lead you like by doing the certifications, it could lead you to have like better earnings. Right now, the market is bad, right? So it's an employer market because we have like high unemployment, people transitioning careers. Well, people try to do other things. And I think it's a good time for you to prepare yourself for what comes next, right? And when this market changes, by being certified, it can be a way for you to negotiate, right, salary and wages. That's why I see like as an opportunity for learning. Bring like some stats in here. 70% of organizations believe industry recognized credentials are essential or very important tools for skills training, right? 91% of candidates or certification candidates who earns a credential are more confident in their abilities. 77% of certified candidates are better able to innovate after earning certifications. So there are some indicators in here, right? Like for Pearson View, IDC, like what Luke like mentioned like before. So there are facts, really. Certifications are going to enable you to succeed. Regarding what makes like the digital app and innovation certifications exciting, I'm gonna bring like some certs certifications in here, paths. So like for Azure developer, that brings you like that sort of skills to design, build, and deploy cloud solutions, like on Azure. And you basically have like get to learn different app services, SDKs, right? Within like from development perspective. With the Azure Solutions Architect certification, you have like a broader knowledge around like the whole Azure ecosystem, let's say. And you get to design like cloud native apps, right? To think about strategies on how to migrate or modernize apps. That drives innovation, right? Innovation can be a piece that is going to simplify business processes. It's going to save costs, right? Could be like a cool tech stack that you're bringing to within the company to, I don't know, get people to connect. There's always like a benefit, right? And you start thinking about different things on how you can optimize, right? Different things. And the Azure DevOps engineer, just connecting. Where you're looking at how you're going to automate and simplify the release process of your software development lifecycle, right? Make things smarter. Let me just close that. My certification journey from overwhelmed to empowered. I think we're in a pretty good spot nowadays because in the past, things were not that easy. You didn't have like those resources. Like Microsoft Learn, it's just amazing, right? You have like the modules, you have lessons. It was designed not to bore you. So you know, like before you get to start, how long you're going to spend in learning some particular modules. I think that's pretty good. But in the past, we didn't have that. You would rely on books, on in-person trainings. That was difficult, right? You would put like money to do the certification, not knowing if you're going to pass. I think that was always like my big scare, like, okay, what if I fail? I think that comes like also with overthinking because you don't know if you're ready, but now you have different resources within Microsoft to learn, right? So where you can do like, the scope of the exam, you have those modules, you have also like practice assessments. You get to know a little bit of like how the exam works with the sandbox. So it allows you to have that sort of experience. Oh, I'm going to have like those questions. How are they like multiple choice? What else happens in there? Drag and drop. You could have like use cases, right? So you have that sort of experience in there. In the past you didn't have that. You would just book the exam and good luck. Like, I think that has completely changed things. I just bring like in my journey. So I started with this certification. The first one was 19 years ago. Always being like a software developer. I started with VB.NET. That was a thick book, like 1,100 pages, like that. And to be honest, it took me 10 months to prepare for the first exam. That's a long time, but it enabled me to get to do the test. And that wasn't like it wasn't something available like within the Microsoft Learn, like that wasn't even Microsoft Learn, but you would just Google that. At the time, like was Amazon as well. I ordered, took like some time to arrive, and then getting to prep for this took some time. I was really scared to fail, but at some stage I passed. That was my first certification, 2005. And that was, I became a little bit more confident, right? That, okay, now I prepped myself. What's the next? Another book. Another book. But that was my journey, right? And I think like what happens in here is that, in general, like it's being afraid of failing. But there are ways of mitigating that sort of risk. in general, like with the certifications, rather than purchasing a single test, right, a single attempt, you could pay like twice. There's like in general, depending on the campaigns, Microsoft campaigns, they have the retake or the replay. So you pay like for a single exam, but you have like the chance to replay that. This has not been happening. I think like what I've seen is that other companies are kind of bundling those tests. So you pay full price in one, and you pay maybe 50% more. So it gives you, okay, you know that if you're going to attempt, you fail, but at least you know like more about the content, and then you get to do like the next one. I've done that. I've done like few exams. I failed in two, but like I took advantage of those retakes, those replays. Right. So just to get to know a little bit how it would be, like the questions, if I was like prepared, and then I would just do it like the second time. That helped, right? And in total, like nowadays, this is my transcript. I passed 37 exams up to date. Those are my current certifications, right? Like DevOps engineer, expert, the AI engineer, solutions architect, Azure developer, and I have like other legacy ones, right? So lots of them. But as you can see that as soon as you become a little bit more confident, you pass your first exam, things go, right? I think like you motivate yourself to do better. How I cracked the codes. Yeah, I think like it was just by exploring what was available for me at the time, and practicing, right? So I think that practice is key nowadays. As I said, Microsoft Learn. Let's see if I can share like my screen here. This one. Right, so you have like those modules, and you can prepare, and you know like the time here you're gonna spend for each lesson. Practice assessments, right? I think that one is key. So you have these assessments available for certification. I don't think like this is fully comprehensive, but there are lots in here of the main sort of certs. And once you do it, like I'm studying for the Z500 at the moment, right? And you have like those practice assessments in here. Like I was just doing things, and then okay, I picked like the wrong choice, and it shows me like the why, so I can get to learn a little bit more, right? And the thing like what I see here is that this is a way for you to learn and validate what you're missing, right? Or maybe just like a thumbs up for you to pass if you fully check like the correct answer. What I felt is that like as I said, like, as part of the bundle, you could just pay for the test, pay for the retake. There are like other bundles that you can pay for training, right, and assessments. This is not like on Microsoft. In general, like it's available Measure Up. So these assessments come from Measure Up. I think it's just like a way how Microsoft made it available for us. But so Measure Up, you have like many more questions. I recommend doing that because if you're doing like as a team, like or as a group of people trying to study together, well, you could just purchase that all together and share, and you get to learn, right? So you're saving on costs. I think that that's pretty good. Definitely recommend doing that, right? As I said, like Luke mentioned about like those different journeys. I'm not going to go through all of them, but you are going to first find like your path. You're going to try and validate your knowledge, like by doing, well, first you're going to learn. You're going to do like some training that could be through Microsoft Learn, or even like nowadays it feels like a little bit more just rare, but you could have like trainings with Microsoft trainers, right? So, and then you get to learn with someone that can guide you about the knowledge for you to succeed. And practice, right? So I put like those links in there. And then for the recording, you should have this one. let me just this. The road ahead, right? I think like it's just going one step at a time. Those fundamentals, those certifications that prepare you for more complex certifications, I think they are very important, right? I didn't mention here. I just brought up like the ones more focused, like on the more complex. But yeah, I think like going one step at a time and doing that, getting to learn the modules, get to understand like the stack, and then practicing, right? I always tell my kids, you need to do the practice. The more you do it, the better you get. If, well, if you succeed in the end, well, you're gonna earn your certification and share, like make sure that this is available and public available, maybe like to the world, publish on LinkedIn. And for like the certifications, you have like a renewal period nowadays, like every single year you need to renew it. And that's like it's much easier to renew because you in general get updates of the delta of what happened the year before to the year you are. And so you just get to study like specific modules. Microsoft gives you like, okay, do you want to renew it? Yes, these are the modules that you need to learn. As soon as you learn those modules, you're going to just be, well, if you're doing as part of your work, you're just familiar with that. In general, for me, because I'm doing those things, it's just much simpler, really. All right. I think like the biggest value here is for us to connect. And feel free to ping me on LinkedIn, and then, yeah, I can provide like value insights about my experience and to help you to do better. Yeah. That's it. Any questions? I think like currently you're gonna pay New Zealand dollars, $160. Yeah, something like that. In general, like if you are bound to a company that's financed by the company, right? So you can get like an expense, make a claim and get like that paid for you. But yeah, if you're gonna purchase in a bundle, you're gonna pay like probably like twice that price. But yeah, give you some reassurance that okay, you're gonna get there. Right? For me, it was always like being afraid of failing. And yeah, it's just because it was costly. I was paying that myself. So I recommend doing that sort of bundling. Yeah.
A while ago or something, at the time, some I got 3 certification code and stuff that's expired. Do you know where to get that back? Is that what into or just?
That's a good question.
Yeah, like for students, right? In general, if you associate like to institution, you have like the percentage or you get that by default. You could have the codes as well. So when you go like you're going to book that certification, go like to Pearson View, and then you can provide the codes. Depending on what you do, like or as MVPs, we have like discounts. As a Microsoft certified trainer, we have discounts. As a student, you have discounts. But if you get these codes, maybe like from a Microsoft event, you could use those to.
Yeah, I got it from the event and then it was even entered into the learn profile and I think it was there. Just expired and disappeared. I'm just wondering.
Yeah, there is some other thing to add to what Marcel said here, which is like every single Microsoft event, even if you don't join it, there is a challenge. So right now there is a Microsoft Ignite challenge. If you go to Microsoft.com, you'll find a big banner saying like there's an AI challenge or something like that. If you go through it, you'll end up with a voucher for a free exam. And that happens every single time with Ignite. There is Microsoft Build. So keep an eye on Microsoft's website. They will give you these challenges every now and then. And if you follow Marcel and other VPs, we announce those kind of things. You will end up with a free voucher for an exam. I think someone is online wanting to ask a question. Yeah. Go ahead, mate.
Go ahead, Rahul.
Yeah. Hi. I just posted it up. I was gonna ask. What was the challenging certification in your journey, the most challenging certification in your journey, and how did you overcome it?
Yeah, I think like it's just getting to know like the what's covered on the exam. For me, like I started like as a developer some time ago, right? And getting to rely on books, those practice tests, like those books, like the exam grants. Nowadays you have Microsoft Learn, right? I think like for me in the latest journey where I took like the solutions architect, I definitely relied only on Microsoft Learn. And I relied on those practice assessments on tooling, right? I got that one from Azure Up, and that helped me practicing. Like for every single answer, wrong answer, I had like an explanation or a link where I could just dig and explore a bit more. I think that that's key, to be honest, because if you're like a professional, you're doing your work, you're gonna know what's covered in a certain extent. But like there are some, the questions can be a little bit tricky or very specific, right? And getting to do those assessments help you to prepare for those exams. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
Questions to the end of the session.
Sorry.
We'll just get, sorry, mate, it's all good. I could ask all the questions at the end. Thank you, Marcel.
Everyone. Oh. Yeah, please. Hi everyone. Getting a bit of a pressure right now because the previous presenter did a really amazing job, and I'm trying to see if I can keep up with them, but I'll try my best. Bit of an introduction. I don't think a presentation goes without a who am I slide. That's just my LinkedIn profile, so that's nothing fancy in there, to be honest, but we'll get some more QR codes. I just wanted to see how many people see a QR code and then immediately try and scan it, but it's one of the tests I want to see, but that's fine. But bit of about me, I started my journey as a pen tester. I call myself an amateur pen tester because I didn't do a really good job because I had to be moved into a different team from there. But what I learned from that is pen testing is more from a red teaming experience, and when you take some skills from one area of expertise and move it to a different area, it kind of becomes like a Superman in a different planet where you are the superpower in that space. Because when I moved into the blue team side of things, I was able to see the attack vectors, and I see that I was not even just be able to, okay, this is how the incident is happening. I need to remediate it, but I know how the attack is happening because I've already done those kind of simulations and pen testing in the previous experience as well. But yeah, it was like 6 months of pen testing I did. And then it slowly moved into security operations. People usually say security operations is not the first entry-level job because security is not an entry-level job and it's like a really hard thing, blah, blah, blah. I kind of argue the other way around because for people who struggle with, I'm not sure where exactly to go. If you jump into security, you would almost learn everything. Because if you're focusing on database, you'll be focusing only on the database side of thing. If you're focusing on the development, you'll focus on development side of thing. But when you focus on security, you see threats for development or applications or network or endpoint and almost like covers every single thing. So it's kind of like a forceful learning where you will have to learn almost everything. That's a really kind of really cool experience that I had to go through. It was a bit of a struggle, but it was a good learning experience for me, I would say. And then, as always I'm a bit lazy when it comes to any kind of a work. I don't like to do the same thing over and over and over again. So like, how can I make someone else do this? Or maybe something to do this. And that's where I got into the automation side of things. So let's say I do some kind of a specific process. I make sure that IP address is here. I check this specific location. Can I automate it? And I got into PowerShell scripting and then like Python scripting and like Bash scripting. And if you're familiar with Azure side of things, there's logic apps, automation accounts, function apps. That's helped in heaps and heaps of automation capability. I slowly started getting into those side of things. When you're into automations, in getting into integrations is really, really inevitable as well. One of my expertise is connecting two different platforms with one platform needs to talk to another or send logs to each of it or do a bidirectional e-bonding. So that's one of my expertise that I've been gaining for the last few years as well. And I always like to call myself as a forever student, as Marcel and Luke mentioned, there's no such thing as an expert. You always have to be from a learning curve, that you always need to be evolving and getting in that space. So that's a bit of a who am I slide from myself. Also, it's one of those dizzy slides, which makes you kind of feel dizzy on that. So apologies for that. I was kind of a bit lazy and started using Prezi on that side of things. I haven't already covered on the fundamental side of things, but just a quick high level on that. There's two fundamentals that everyone needs to go through before you get into security, any development side or like certifications you want to get through. I like to break that into Microsoft fundamentals and Azure fundamentals. They kind of have a bit of an overlap, so I had to try and see where the overlap comes in and different kind of areas. And you can see that the first and the last sections of both certifications are kind of similar to each other. The fundamentals of cloud computing from a Microsoft 365 perspective, what are the covers, what is the tenancy side of things, what does it mean to have some kind of a cloud application run on there, that covers from a cloud application side of things. And from the Azure side of things, it starts covering some of the architecture of the Azure side, where if you're familiar with how the hierarchy works, there is something called as a management group, which is the topmost branch of the hierarchy, and then under which you can have multiple subscriptions, under which you can have multiple resource groups, under which you can have multiple resources. So that specific explanation by itself is really, really awesome, covered in the AZ900 side of things. I've seen people who get into Azure side of things, they know what a subscription is, they know what a resource group is, but they don't know the logical boundary between them. They don't know which goes on top of it. How can you group them? How can you do the building? How can you do the cost side of things? It's not more about just being the expert in one specific field, but you need to know the basics of it so you can learn through that sort of thing. So you be the real expert, that's what I would say. So always start from the fundamental side of things. Even if you don't want to do a certification per se, I would really advise going through the learning pathway. So if you get through the learning pathway, practice the labs, exercises, everything, that's a really good step for you to get into that. I'll be focusing purely on security side of things. So feel free to ask any questions if you want to. From the security side of things, we like to do the zero trust pillars. There's like 6 pillars from identity, endpoint, network, application, infrastructure, cloud, data, sorry. And out of the 6 pillars, the first thing we usually prioritize, or the most commonly attacked vector, is the identity. Because it's already on the cloud, it's just an email address with a password that's floating around where someone can just compromise it, brute force it, etc. We've had customers come in sometimes where I want to do some automation, I want to do some AI capabilities, security, and like, cool, have you covered your identity side of things? Like, no, we'll get there. I'm like, no, focus on the fundamentals, focus on the identity, make sure your perimeter is secure, and then start investing in much more complicated side of things. So same way from a learning side as well, what I would suggest is try and learn the identity side of things. These 2 certifications are really amazing. The SC900 is the fundamental side of things, where it covers what is an Entra ID, how does it work, how does user accounts work, what are the types of identities, and they're but on a very, very high level. On the other side, SC300, it's kind of somewhere between beginner and intermediate. It's an associate side of things, but it still also covers a bit of basics of the Entra ID, where not just from an identity, but what are the roles in there? What are the permissions you have? There's different kind of roles in Entra ID as well as in Azure as well. I've seen people say, I have global administrator, but I couldn't create a resource group. I'm like, yes, because there's 2 different kinds of roles. So you need to be familiar with what is an Azure role versus what is an Entra ID role. The SC300 goes through a really, really descriptive way to teach you the difference between that. And applications, when it comes to the Entra side of things, there's like 2 kinds of application, 3 kind of applications roughly. Entra ID, where the enterprise applications, app registrations, and the actual service principals are form of application by themselves. It's kind of like carrying an ID card in there saying that this is who I am, this is who this identity is, this is what the resource is. I have the permission for this. I have the RBAC role so that I can access this resource. How does those work from an access management perspective is covered really, really good on the SC300 side of things. SC900, apart from the identity side, it also covers from a security solutions kind of thing, as in what are the solutions that out there in the Microsoft side of thing. I'm not going to deep dive, but it's just the overview of this is what different XDR is, this is what Sentinel is, this is what Purview is. Nothing more, nothing less. But from a really, really high level, it's a really good starting point to know what it is from a security side. So step one to get into, I would call the fundamentals as step 0. And then step 1 to get into the security side of things is to start covering the identity side of things. So from a beginner perspective, these two certifications will give you amazing insights on that side of things. Getting into the intermediate, or one of my favorite certifications is the SC200. I come from the security operations background, and the SC200 is the missing master key that everyone needs to have if you're jumping into security operations. Anyone who has SC200 jumping into security operations from a Microsoft side of things will obviously learn not just the tool set, but also the analytic skills on that side of things. Earlier, it used to be just the Defender and Sentinel side of things. Now that with whole Security Copilot, they've added the whole Security Copilot stack as well. What does it do? How does it work? How does it work with security operations, etc.? People usually get confused with the whole Defender stack of Defender side of things, where there's 365 Defender, there is Defender XDR, there's Defender for endpoint, cloud apps. How does it even work? And they kind of get confused on the side of things. So slightly deviating from the certification side of things, I just have a bonus slide to say, this is the architecture of the security solutions and how does it actually work. When people say Defender XDR, they say the entire suite that falls under it. So when you say 365 Defender, that's just 5 specific for defenders and 1 enter-identity protection grouped together. And then you have Sentinel as your SIEM solution, which is an optional thing that you can merge into your Defender XDR. And then there's Defender for Cloud, which is the alert side that gets merged in there. So when someone says Defender XDR, they mean the entire suite that they call in that space. The terminologies, even though it's slightly confusing, and as Luke mentioned, from every single Ignite or conference, they keep renaming stuff. It's really hard to keep track of it. But it's more from an abstraction perspective that they want to make things easier for us. So you don't have to keep track of like 8 or 20 different platforms. Instead, all smashed together in one platform with one UI makes it much more unified operation side of things. So back to the intermediate certification. When it comes to Sentinel, it's a SIEM and SOAR solution. It's the first cloud-native solution from Microsoft, not from in the globe, I'd say. And it covers a really good high level of how do you, it's not just more about this is how you use Sentinel. It's more of how do you start with Sentinel? How do you create it? Like what are the things you need to configure? What is the log analytic workspace? On a high level, I would say log analytic workspace is like the database, and Sentinel is like an application that sits on top of it. So they both make the actual Sentinel as a use case in that space. So that's really, really explicitly mentioned on the SC200, where you understand the basics of it, not just more of, I know how to use it, rather I know how to build it as well. So from a high level, you can do that as well. And data connectors is where you collect the logs, bring it into Sentinel, and then you start doing some threat hunting or whatever. And if you want to do incident response, how do you do that? And when people say threat hunting, they like to run some fancy queries, and people usually get panicked about, like, I'm not familiar with the language. I don't know how to use this language. SC200, the main focus of it, and my best favorite part is the Custo query language. It gives you some really good outline of these are the key operators that you need to learn about it. Of course, you're not going to have the whole documentation dumped into it. You need to be an expert. It's not easy enough to do that. But they kind of start, these are the 10 operators that's really, really useful for you when you start doing threat hunting. So you don't have to go deep dive all in, but from an overview perspective, or you understand the platform, you understand the language from which you can build on top of it. And in Security Copilot, it's a bit of an embedded experience that's kind of sits around all the platforms together. It's a bit of a growing module in the platform right now. It's not fully fledged because the platform by itself is growing at the moment and things are changing. So they haven't covered every single topic in the learning module that I checked, but I'm pretty sure people are already working on adding more and more documentations and modules on that side of things as well. Advanced side of things, it's kind of like a couple of certifications grouped together plus an extra topic on top of it. When people see that, I've already seen this module somewhere, I've already seen that module somewhere. So if you want to look at from a high level picture of what does AZ500 make? So AZ500 is the security administrator, security engineer, associate. And people see that I've already done this module, I've already done that module. So it's really confusing where it is. If you've already done the previous slides, SC200 and the SC300 from an identity perspective, you're already halfway through the Azure Security Engineer Associate. Because all the modules that you've seen in the previous certification will already be grouped together. So it's more of you choose your path on where you already have been. You don't have to start from fundamentals. if you've already done those certifications or whatsoever, or maybe you're good at that, so you can skip the fundamentals and then you can take the engineer associate certification, so you can already squeeze them. But it's going to be a bit of a struggle journey where it's instead of like a month of learning, you're going to have to do a couple months or 3 months in that space. So depending on where you are right now in your career, it's up to you to decide the journey and that sort of thing. So apart from the AC2 and AC300, like I said, I was just having a chat with Ahmed about it. It's not, from a security perspective, it's not just about learning the security. You need to know how the infrastructure works. You need to know how the networking works, especially with Azure. The terminologies might be different. So I've seen people struggle that I've worked with a different cloud platform, and I'm really, really good at it. When they jump into Azure, they really struggle because the terminologies are different. The UI is different. They didn't know how to connect one part to another. They didn't know how the identities work. So getting to know those specifics of the networking and the infrastructure side is really, really key when you want to be an engineer, to be building security solutions sort of things. SC100 still scares me till date. It's really, really scary for me. I haven't got to that part yet, even from a learning perspective. It's the cybersecurity architect expert. It covers the entire AZ500, which is every single certification that we've seen in the past, plus much more from an architecture. Since it's an architecture perspective, it covers all the frameworks like Zero Trust, well-architected framework from Azure, and the cloud adoption cloud adoption strategy framework they have. I also saw some case studies, which is really interesting. I haven't got to that part yet, but they really, really, it's not just from a theoretical perspective, but you also know someone has done a case study about this specific scenario whatsoever, so you can read someone else's perspective on how it goes and stuff. So it's much more deep dive from an architecture perspective on how you do it. But all these certifications, these are all theoretical, as in like you read something, you get to know how it is, you try and learn from analytic skills, you take some knowledge checks, you take some exams, which is fine. But what do you want to? What if you want to do from a practical, where you want to do some hands-on experiences? That's where the applied skills comes in, and I'm really, really glad that applied skills is not just for development or infrastructure, but even for security, they have applied skills where you can do some kind of a simulation, like a small sandbox environment that you can practice things in that space. From a security operation background, so I'm really, really fan of the Sentinel side of things. They've done a really amazing work on a simulated way where this is how you need to create a Sentinel. So they have some kind of a UI saying, where would you click on this specific thing to start creating a local workspace? What is the next step? So it's like a guided response on, if you're not familiar with it, it kind of goes through the learning exercise, as well as from an exam and a certification perspective, it says, once you created this, when you click on this, you're now able to do that. So it goes both ways from a configuration, usability, advanced perspective. I think they also do automation rules, so you can learn how the automation side of things work as well. Data collection rule is also one of the advanced topic. I'm really glad that's also part of the applied skills, where from a log filtering perspective, how do you cost optimize, things like that. So the applied skills is not more of from a like a namesake where I need to do something for security. Instead, it was actually considered and structured in a way where people need to learn from point A to point B sort of thing. Same for Azure DevOps security, where people who are developers, you might have worked with Azure DevOps. It's not just about creating a pipeline of code where I can create an application, done. But it's more of how do you secure it? What if there is an insider threat? What if someone has your credentials or someone steals the session token to compromise it? How do you still secure them? How do you keep your passwords not hard-coded in your code in there? So all the side of the Azure DevOps side of things from a security, how do you handle your parameters? How do you handle your secret variables? Every single key things that you need to know about security perspective for Azure DevOps will be covered in that side of things. I think I haven't added this slide, but there's one more thing from an MVP perspective, just a quick experience that I want to share from the owl. The really interesting thing about MVP is it's not more about you've done a certification, you've done this learning, you've done this passing exam. It's more of you write or contribute to the community as a win-win, where it's not just for you, it's also for the community. And the highest point, this is something I believe is the highest point of learning is when you're able to teach it to someone else. If you just know how to do it, but you can't explain to someone else, you haven't attained the highest level from the learning perspective, I'd say. And that is something that gave me really, really insights on. I started writing LinkedIn articles saying, I knew this, I know how to do it, but when I started writing, I couldn't structure it. I struggled so badly because how do I explain this in words for people, someone who doesn't know that? And that made me learn more and more about it from a more platform perspective, from an infrastructure perspective, from the basics on how do I actually make it simplify enough that people can easily read through and stuff like that. So the MVP, I would really suggest everyone to start learning things, but not just for yourself, but also to try and teach it to someone else. So it becomes dual purpose where you get benefits out of it. Try becoming MVPs to get that side of things as well. Last thing is this is something I really like. Got from ChatGPT, but certifications open store, but it's the actual skills and the experience that you bring that make you valuable in the side of things. If you are keen for the whole the certifications, the list, the hyperlinks of each of it, I put a LinkedIn post recently. Feel free to scan the QR code. I swear that's not a phishing code, so you can feel free to scan that one, and you can get the links and the hyperlinks of that specific certification. It includes the applied skills as well. I'll also add the link for the presentations link on the same post as well. So if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on LinkedIn as well, and we'll be happy to have a chat with you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Debak.
I have a question, and like I know the answer, but it's a pet peeve at the moment. Is it Azure Sentinel or is it Microsoft Sentinel?
So
Put it out for the audience.
interesting one. So it used to be, it used to be Azure Sentinel. I believe it was a couple years ago when they changed the name to Microsoft Sentinel because they didn't want to. They were on the migration of moving the whole thing into a Microsoft stack rather than just isolating it to the Azure side of things. So people still use the terminology Azure Sentinel. I've seen a few terminologies where Azure Defender, which has been changed to Microsoft Defender for Cloud. So there's been a few terminology changes, but yes, to answer your question, look, it's Microsoft Sentinel.
Cheers, thanks.
Yes, mate.
All right, guys, I promise. Worth it.
One more question. Rahul?
Oh, hi there. This is a question to all of you that spoke today. With Azure technologies evolving so quickly, how can certified professionals stay updated on latest features and ensure their knowledge and skills remain relevant with the technologies changing quickly?
It's more of a the way I do. I don't want to speak for everyone, but what I usually do is, apart from the learning and the keeping up on certifications, etc., I like to do some hands-on skills. As Ahmed mentioned, there's a few sandboxes. You can get your own Azure subscription. I believe there's a CDX as a customer demo environment that you can get as well to play hands-on as well. That usually is my go-to way to see whenever there is a new service or a platform. For example, there was Azure AI Foundry that popped up. And the first thing I jumped in was to my test tenant and started creating it, looking at the documentations, trying to figure things out on their own, try and build something or try and make something as a use case. And then through that, you learn it rather than I want to read some stuff and then start building it rather than jump into the water and then you'll figure out how to start swimming. That is usually my approach of how I proceed with the learning side of things to keep myself updated.
Yeah, thank you everyone for staying with me. So this is just like 2 minutes announcement. On December 10th in here, there'll be a free event where you'd be able, it's like an AI hackathon. You'll get access to labs and hands-on. There will be presentations from subject matter expert, people who actually build these kind of stuff. So if you're into learning more about AI or developing with AI, we would love you to join us. So December 10th from 9 a.m. to 4 p.m. AI hackathon. And yeah, the agenda is here. And if you like to register, you could use that link. So with all of that, thank you so much, guys. And thank you for coming. Yeah, cheers.